This evening, the battle over election integrity has continued for the past 4 years, and the race for the Maricopa County Recorder's office is quickly heating up, just weeks away from the primary. Tonight, 3 very different candidates join us. First, Justin Heap, a representative from East Mesa, then Don Hiatt, who says the 2020 election was stolen, and finally, Stephen Richer, the incumbent. This is Before You Vote. Welcome, I'm Mike Broomhead. As we get closer to the primary election, more ballot initiatives are being finalized and candidates are pushing their campaigns to the limits. Let's start with the latest news about the 2024 presidential candidates. As you know, the debate did not go well for the president. Accusations and concerns about his mental health are out there. Well, it was followed up by an interview with George Stephanopoulos from ABC News. And what George ended up finding out in his own statement was, after the interview was over, his concerns were that the president couldn't do another 4 years. ABC backpedaled on that statement, only to be followed up with what was the funny part of the debate, and that was arguing about the president's handicap in golf. He said he was a 5 handicap. Donald Trump said he isn't, and said that was the biggest lie he's ever told. At a rally on Tuesday, President Trump in Florida challenged President Biden to a golf match, said he'd give him 10 strokes aside, and if Biden wins, he would give $1 million to the charity of the president's choice. Now, of course, the Biden campaign said that they're not interested in doing that, but this is the direction things are going. It also came out that a neurologist has visited the White House multiple times during the Biden presidency, one as recently as January. Now, it has people concerned about Parkinson's. They said the president is not being treated for, taking medication for, nor ever been treated for Parkinson's. Now, here in the state of Arizona, a ballot initiative about the border, similar to the one that was passed in Texas, but it's being challenged on the single subject rule. An Arizona Constitution says a ballot initiative has to have a single subject. Well, the proponents of this say it's the border. But the people that are against this are saying that it has got multiple topics about punishment. It has multiple topics having to do with public benefits. It has to do with drugs. And so it isn't one subject, and it's being challenged. So a court will be deciding in the near future whether or not the ballot initiative, as it's written, gets on the ballot. We'll be finding out about that. Now, don't go anywhere. After the break, we're talking with Republican County Recorder candidate Justin Heap. Find out about his plans if he's elected to office. We'll be back in exactly 60 seconds. Welcome back to Before You Vote, talking with candidates for the Recorder's office in Maricopa County. Republican candidate Justin Heap is here. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
So let's talk about the office of the Recorder before we get into specifics. Asking all the candidates, how confident are you that the election results in 2020 and 2022 were accurate?
Well, I think the better question is probably, do the voters feel confidence in the election? And the answer to that question is no. They don't feel confidence. I think voter confidence right now is at an all-time low. And the reason why they don't feel confidence is that we have consistently in Maricopa County run some of the worst elections in America. In 2022 was made Maricopa County a national laughingstock. We had half of our voting machines on the day of go down, and then 3 weeks before the county recorder could tell us the result. And the result of that is, if you run elections this badly, then people don't trust the results no matter what the result comes out as.
How much of that delay, though, is about the early ballots because of the way we're allowed to turn them in on election day, but then they have to be verified and counted? Is there a way to fix that portion of it to get results faster?
Yeah, I think there is. We have an issue with the early ballots being dropped off. You do have to still do signature verification on them. Now, our current county recorder says, well, it was because we had so many turned in day of, that was the reason for the delay. And that is true. The question is, do we have a mechanism to do this? Could we have prevented this? And I think the answer to that question again is yes, if we had a recorder with some foresight. So Arizona law allows the recorder to set up an alternate line at a polling station or find alternate polling places for day of voters. You can have people walk in when they come in to drop off their vote. They can say, hey, go over here to this section, to an alternate line, or to a polling place that we found nearby. Show ID, we check them on the ballot, and then we open that mail-in ballot and we run it through the counter right there. And that would have taken a huge number of those off. We knew that this was coming, and our current county recorder failed to take any provisions to prepare for that.
I know that a big issue for you is purging the voter rolls and making sure that they're accurate. How do we do that? And do you think that, because the recorder now says that they have done that, have they? And if not, how do you plan to do it?
Well, I do know that the county recorder says that, and I think maybe purging is too strong a word,
okay.
But we do need to maintain and make sure we're cleaning our voter rolls. That is the fundamental job of the county recorder. And the reason why I think we can say definitively that our current county recorder is not doing an effective job is the number of voters who, if you get together any group of voters, 100 voters, you ask them, did you or someone you know receive an extra ballot in the mail? About a third of the hands in the room will go up. I've done this with hundreds of groups. I've done it on stage with Stephen Richer in front of audiences, always with that same result. That could not happen if we were doing an effective job. If we are mailing out extra ballots to people, and I know just me personally, I have received extra ballots at my address last election cycle for people who have never lived at my address. And these are the kind of systemic problems that we see, that the voters see every cycle, that crushes their trust. And we need to have more transparency and more integrity in the office. We need people to have a right to trust in their vote and be shown in an open way that the laws are being followed, that we are doing everything we can to make the system as secure as possible.
Early voting is here to stay. It seems to be that it's not going anywhere, at least in the near future. Are you confident that we can secure the election and we can have fair elections if it's done the right way, including early voting, or do you think early voting should go away?
Well, that's really a question for the voters. It is true. I mean, that will be a question for the legislature and a future governor on what the future of elections is going to look like, how we're going to restrict or manage it. The best we can do right now, though, is the law right now allows for early voting. A lot of our voters do prefer the mail-in ballot. And so the best thing that we can do is make sure that we are securing the system and make early voting as secure as we can possibly make that. And we can do that by making sure up front that we are checking the new registrations, that we are maintaining our voter rolls, that we are maintaining chain of custody on all of our ballots, and that we are doing proper signature verification. I think if we just execute Arizona law, we're going to be able to produce results that are more trustworthy and get them out quicker to the voters in Maricopa County.
I appreciate the time and I wish you well.
Thank you.
His name is Justin Heap. He's running for the recorder's office. We'll be back. Coming up, 2 more Republican candidates for the Maricopa County Recorder's office in studio. Find out how Don Hiatt would stop what he calls another stolen election from happening, and see how Stephen Richer is planning on maintaining transparency in the office. This is Before You Vote. Welcome back to Before You Vote. It is our time once again with another candidate for Maricopa County Recorder. This time, it's Don Hiatt. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you very much.
Start off with the same question I've asked the other candidates. The election, the 2020-2022 election, do you believe either one of them or both of them were stolen?
Absolutely, I do.
Which? Both or one or the other?
Both of them.
And how so?
Well, there's just anomalies that you can't explain otherwise. So, for example, I mean, how did we get $2 million put into our election system by Zuckerbucks? You know, that's not a normal thing that occurs. We had all kinds of issues. I worked the audit as well. We had, I think it was 30,000 mail-in ballots that weren't folded. And that's an impossibility, okay? Those kinds of things are indicative to me that fraud occurred and that the election was stolen.
So then how do you explain the court case after court case after court case where the judges are saying they're not seeing evidence? Do you believe there's corruption in the justice system as well?
Well, it's odd, but the court system would say you don't have standing to whoever it was that brought the case. But it's weird that, you know, a candidate wouldn't have standing, or even citizens wouldn't have standing. So I don't really know about the court cases that much. All I know is that that doesn't prove that there wasn't fraud.
So then let's move forward to what would happen in the office. If you were to win this office, what do you do to ensure that fraud is not going to happen, or at least reduce it to as much as you can where it's an impossibility?
Well, my entire career has been as an enterprise architect. I walk into companies like State Farm Auto, Chase Bank, Kraft Food Service. I analyze how they do their processes. I get to know what they do quickly. And then I re-engineer those processes in order to save money or make things more efficient. And in the process of that, at the recorder's office, I would find out a lot about what goes on down there. And that would be my first foray, is really just to walk in and get to know the lay of the land. And then I'd be able to look and see where things are at. For example, I think we should put GPS trackers on the ballot boxes. Who knows if some of those ballot boxes haven't stopped off at a bar and made some little baby ballots. I mean, there's common sense that we can do to help ensure better security on things.
I know you took a tour of the facility, the MTech, like I did. We went at different times, but we've taken a tour, and you were able to ask some of the questions of the current recorder of what's happening. Was there anything you learned there that you thought was a good idea, and were there things there that you witnessed during the tour that you think needs to be changed?
It was a long tour. It was Scott Jared that gave us the tour itself. Okay. And so we got to see all the things. He took us around. He showed us the tabulation room and all the different things. I didn't see anything exciting or extraordinary or out of the ordinary because, you know, you can walk and you can stand and see the large high-speed scanners, and they say, see, the wires don't leave the room. That doesn't prove it's not connected to the internet. So there's things like that you would just have to get more detailed and more familiar with before you could make decisions like that.
So the county recorder handles early voting, and which means whether you like it or not, early voting is what they control. What would you want to do to make it faster, that we get the results in a more timely fashion? What can be done?
Well, I understand that Mr. Richer really doesn't want this job. He's actually negotiated an agreement with the Board of Supervisors through a shared service agreement to get him out of early voting. So he doesn't want anything to do with voting. He would still want to manage the voter rolls. What could be done to make it faster? I don't know how we ever ended up with election month, early voting for a month, because you don't need that much time to do that. I did a spreadsheet analysis of all the vote centers in 2022, the hours that they were open. My wife was an observer there, and 8 ballots walked in one afternoon. And if you do the math on that, you're paying like $30 for a ballot to walk in, versus on day of you're paying 42 cents. So there's a huge cost expense to that. And if the average is that, you know, that they're not very heavily used. So I think that you could speed that up. But why don't we have a week of voting instead of a month? I mean, but those are things that I wouldn't have statutory responsibility for. I'd have to work with the Board of Supervisors, have to work with the legislature to change laws and make things happen.
Mr. Hiatt, I appreciate the time and I wish you well.
Thank you so very much.
We'll be back in just a moment. Coming up, the current Maricopa County Recorder and candidate Stephen Richer defends his office and his track record under his tenure. This is Before You Vote. Welcome back to Before You Vote. Conversation now with current Maricopa County Recorder and candidate Stephen Richer. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
All right, you've got challengers, but you've also got the resume. Challengers are saying that the voter rolls are not being maintained correctly. People are concerned about stolen elections. How do you defend your record for the time you've been in this office?
So I think on the record front, the proof is in the pudding. So something like clean voter rolls. When I took office, we had 2.6 million active registered voters. Now, 4 years later, despite being the fastest growing county in the country, we're down to 2.4 million active registered voters, so a decrease in 200,000. So I can point to something like that. We've done it. I can point to something like rebuilding the voter registration database. We've done it. I can point to things like lists that were never before used that are lawful for doing list maintenance. We've done it. When these other candidates say, we want clean voter rolls, they don't give you too many specifics, and that's because they don't know the office and they don't know the process. And that's okay, but what I am running on is I'm somebody who has really worked hard, dug in, done the hard work, put in the elbow grease, and can continue to drive this office forward.
When you look at the accusations and people saying they're getting ballots for people who don't live at their house, is that something that is preventable, or is that something that every once in a while is still going to happen?
There's always going to be a little bit of that because, for instance, one of these high-profile ones that got trafficked on social media was somebody who changed her residential address shortly before the voter registration deadline. So one ballot was already in queue to go out to her, and then as soon as she changed her registration address, another ballot went out. And that's okay. That's how the system works. You know that the first ballot packet is canceled. So we try to explain to that, look, it's understandable that voters don't know every single situation, but we try to share information. But again, going back to the raw numbers, we've done voter list maintenance. We're going to continue to do voter list maintenance, and I'm proud of our record on that front.
One of your challengers is unsure of the election results, and the other one says the 2020 election was definitely stolen. Are you sure that 2020, 2022, the results are accurate?
Yes. And I think that that is very damning if you can't say with authority what happened in 2020, what happened in 2022. For this position, this is a position that is highly technical. You need to dig in. And if you can't answer that question with a straight face, then you either haven't done your homework or you lack the courage to tell voters the truth. And what I've always done, and you've seen me, even in places where it's highly unpopular, I've gone there, I've told voters the truth because my constituents deserve that respect.
What is the answer to faster results? That's one of the criticisms, is it takes
absolutely.
too long.
So I'm fully sympathetic to this criticism. I was somebody who, the night of election night, running against Adrian Fontes in 2020, I was down by 90,000 votes, and I slowly came back, and we call it a comeback even though all the votes are already in. So over the past 2 years, what have I looked at? I've given 3 options. 1, we can change it through the state legislature. 2, we could change voter behavior, or 3, we could throw more bodies at it. The state legislature hasn't changed anything, so the law is the same. Secondly, we can tell people that, look, if you hold on to that early ballot until Election Day, we still have to do all those processes after Election Day, and so that's going to slow down the process. So we included in these present ballot packets a little leaflet explaining the tabulation process, and that if they want a higher percentage of results available at 8 p.m. on election night, they just need to get that early ballot back to us sooner. And then lastly, we've expanded our facility. The Board of Supervisors gave some more money to put some more space inside our elections facility so that we can simply throw more people at it within those first 24 hours after Election Day. So we can hopefully have a higher percentage within the first 24 hours. So very sympathetic to this, want to do more on this.
What do voters need to know about your campaign, and how does the office change? What do you do differently in a second term?
I think they need to know that I'm somebody who had management experience before stepping into this office. And since stepping into this office, I've really dug in. This is an office of 150 full-time employees. This should not be your first management position. It is for one of the candidates. This would be the first time he's hired or fired anyone, the first time he's managed anyone. You shouldn't be learning on the job here. And because I wasn't learning on the job, we've been able to do things like build a new voter registration database, build a new website, build Maricopa Title Alert. And I'm the guy who has the managerial expertise that will allow me to continue driving the office forward, getting no-nonsense wins like Maricopa Title Alert that will hopefully benefit all of our county residents.
I appreciate the time as always. It's great talking to you, and I wish you well.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Stephen Richer is the county recorder. He's also a candidate again for the office. We'll be back. Welcome back to Before You Vote. Thank you to the Republican Maricopa County Recorder candidates for joining us today. If you miss an interview or you want to rewatch any of them, head over to cw7az.com/vote. There you can also find voter resources and all of the past local debates. July 30th is the primary election. Early voting has begun. There is still time to request a mail-in ballot. Thanks for joining us this week. We will see you next Sunday right here on Before You Vote.